Welcome to For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where we discuss amazing books written by talented authors. For Book Lovers Only Live Radio is a proud member of the Village Connector Media Network. If you love books, we have a home for you. Now time for your host and chief book lover, Rob Brown.
Hey, book lovers, this is Rob Brown, your internet radio host and chief book lover, and this is For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where if you love books, we have a home for you. Thank you so much for stopping by this Sunday afternoon. I'd like to wish you and your family a wonderful Independence Day. Hope you guys got the barbecue grill all fired up with hot dogs and all kinds of good stuff there and enjoying your weekend. Today, I'm so happy to have author Marty Reep, who will be joining us via phone today. He's written many, many books, but today we'll only be talking about two of them, the ones you see before you, Believe, Do, and Follow Through, and Trevor and the Dark Rider. But first, I want to take a moment to give a special thanks to last week's guest, Lisa Zarcone, author of The Unspoken Truth, If the Walls Could Speak, What I Tell They Would Tell, which is available at www.forbooklaversonly.com. That's www.forbooklaversonly.com. And number one best-selling author and award-winning coach Ellen Violette, owner of bestseller Business Blueprint. They were wonderful guests, and we are so happy to have had them on our show last week. Please pick up a copy of each of those books from our website at www.forbooklaversonly.com. If this is the first broadcast of our show that you're watching, we cordially invite you to join our Book Lovers Club. You can do so by visiting www.forbooklaversonly.com and just inserting your name and email address, and you're a member. It's as simple as that. You'll get exclusive information about books, authors, and special purchasing opportunities and other goodies. So look forward to having you join. I want to tell you a little bit about some book fairs that are coming up. The Harlem Book Fair will be coming on Saturday, July 15th from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It was created to celebrate, encourage, and promote literacy and reading awareness using public programs, corporate partnerships, and in-school programs. It is the nation's largest African-American book fair. It's going to be at West 135th Street at Malcolm X Boulevard. And if you want to get more information, please visit www.harlembookfair.com. That's www.harlembookfair.com. Looks like we only have one book fair to announce today, so we'll get right into our guest. Today's guest is a speaker, author, and synesthete. Marty has entertained and encouraged people for years via books, on stage, in classrooms, and one-on-one. His writing ranges from motivational to how-to fiction to poetry. He's done thousands of presentations over the past 20 years, and he knows how to overcome in life. We are delighted to have Marty Reep as our guest today, and we're going to call Marty right now.
Hello.
Marty?
Hey, Rob. How are you?
I'm good. This is for Book Lovers Only Live Radio. We are happy to have you as our guest. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's good to talk to you, man.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, I know you've written lots and lots and lots of books. We're going to be talking about two today, but first, let's start out. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, I live in California with my family, and we moved here about 20 years ago. I grew up in North Carolina on a dairy farm. So currently I work with the Air Force, and we do training at the space schoolhouse that they have. And so it's kind of funny. I chuckle when I think of the road that it's taken to go from milking cows first thing in the morning, you know, and all throughout the summertime as a kid to now as an adult writing books, traveling the world, and helping with satellites. So it's kind of funny how the road of life will take you sometimes.
Right. I like that evolution.
You never know what tomorrow's going to bring sometimes.
Right, right. And you've written multiple books. I mean, you've written a lot of books. Just tell us, how did you even start to become an author?
Well, when I was a kid, I remember I had to do a paper in the third grade, and it was on Harry Houdini. And I remember getting saved her for a long time because I got some comments back from the teacher about how well it was written, how she liked it, blah, 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 that kind of thing. And this was pre-internet. This was break out the book from the encyclopedia or, get your mom to take you into town kind of thing and go to the library and do some research. But it was just, after I wrote the paper and getting that feedback, it was this kind of thing that I was so excited about it. I thought, I could be an author. And we used to play card games a lot when we were kids, especially when we go on road trips as a family or get together at family reunions, and we would play different card games. And one of the games that we played was authors, of all things. So my brother was older, and he made us memorize all the different authors, all the different books that they had written, that kind of thing. So I think part of that was burned into me. And so as I got older and I continued to write, I thought, I was thinking about what kind of legacy do I want to leave for, not only for my family, but for, as my return contribution to the world, if you will. I thought, well, books are a great way, again, this was pre-internet, a great way to leave a positive mark on the world. And so that was one of my determining points to start putting all those thoughts that I had written down on paper for a long time by hand, put them actually into print. And so once the advent of the internet came along and the digital publishing world became a reality, it made it a whole lot easier to take all those things that were in a file cabinet for years and years. And my wife looked at them one day. She's like, okay, what are you going to do with all this stuff? You got a whole file drawer of notes. Are you going to do something with it? Are you actually going to publish something? Or are we just going to leave it here until we're, in our 80s and 90s, and when you pass away, then we'll just get rid of it? And I was like, wow, that was the kick in the rear that I needed. And so that year, I took all those notes over the course of about 2 years, took all those notes, typed them all up, paid a couple students when I was teaching at the high school at the time to type up all those notes, and realized I had over 300 pages worth of just random stuff. And so I broke those apart into multiple books and then added other things I had to it that I had actually already typed up. And so in about a 13 to 15 month period of time, I published 10 books just from those notes. And they ranged everything from poetry to how-to motivational to some fiction things. And it was all over the board, but that was the birthing of it, if you will, that one big year where a lot of it came out. And then periodically since then, I've tried to put something out every 6 months, every year.
Wow. So just from all your notes, you literally had 10 books worth of notes just waiting there.
Yeah, they were just sitting there, and I didn't know what to do at the time, and trying to go to school and work full time and raise a family, and lots of stuff was going on in the world, or in my world. And so I went to the students and said, look, summer's coming up. I'm looking for a couple guys, a couple people who I can trust with my thoughts. Here's 20 years worth of stuff that you're going to read, and some of you are going to be like, what is he talking about? And other things you're going to go, oh, okay, that's cool. And other stuff you're going to be like, I don't know. But anyway, so a couple people stuck their hands up and they said, yeah, well, we'll do it. Are you going to pay us? They were going to do it for free. I was like, heck yeah, I'll pay you. It's legit. And so they typed it up. They took a few weeks and they typed up all this stuff, and then I took that material and broke it apart into the different meaningful pieces that there were. Because it's like every day, and my whole life, every day, words run through my head, and it's sort of the way I equate it is sort of like having an antenna. And when I put the antenna up, and I'm willing to receive all those whatever those words that are flying around up there in the ether or in the air, like radio waves, then I grab those, write them down, and then they leave me alone. Or sort of like I equate it to them standing at the doorway, if you will, of your house. It's like they're just standing there waiting or chilling on the front steps, or sitting in the little bench out by the front door, going, okay, he's going to open the door at some point. We're gonna get him, and
right.
in a good way. And so those words are there every day, and sometimes I'll write them down, and sometimes I won't. I don't. And the days I'm sure you understand as a radio host that when you get those great ideas, you're like, man, I got to get this down on paper or it's going to escape. So I'm guilty of that as well. If I don't write it down right then it's gone again. And other days, those, like you probably experienced as well, those great ideas will return and you're like, oh, I got them today.
Right. Exactly. And as you and I were getting to know each other, you had told me about a very interesting characteristic about yourself and the way your thought process is. Tell us a little bit more about that.
You're referring to the synesthesia?
Yes.
Okay. So a couple years ago, I realized that I had synesthesia. And, I've known that I've had different ways of looking at the world, or sounds would do different things in my mind than other people when I would talk to them about it. But I didn't realize it had a name. It actually had a name until 2 or 3 years ago. I was walking into work one day, and I heard a full-blown symphony playing. And so I stopped, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Who's playing Beethoven this morning? This was like 8 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday or Wednesday in the middle of May. And I was like, man, this is cool. Wow. And I stopped, and I was like, And the wind was really blowing. I mean, where we live, on the Central Coast in California, the wind blows a lot. And anyway, so I was looking around, and I realized I didn't hear any music actually playing. Nobody had a boom box out there or had their car speakers going. I was like, what the heck? And realized it was the trees, the gigantic eucalyptus trees were blowing in the wind. I was like, okay, that's weird. And it scared the heck out of me because I was like, okay, what does that mean? So I went in and started researching it, and I started calling doctors, and I went in and I found a couple of interviews of kids on high school kids and college kids on YouTube, and they talked about these different things. I was like, I didn't realize it had a name. I wish I'd known that 40 years ago when I was a kid, because I have vivid memories of the same kind of thing as a kid happening. And I would ask the teachers, hey, how come the trees do that? And they're like, what are you talking about? Well, the wind's blowing. I'm like, well, what about the music that's playing too? Don't you hear the music? Or don't you see those cool lines coming off of off the movement? And they're like, you have a very vivid imagination. Now go back to the playground and play.
Wow, that's really interesting.
But in talk, oh, sorry.
I said, this is really interesting. I never knew that existed, but go ahead.
Well, yeah, and so in talking to doctors, they're like, oh, yeah, it's a phenomenon. Some people see colored numbers. And so I put a little poster up at work, just a very innocuous poster. It's one that Dr. Ramachandran out of UC San Diego came up with a few years ago. And it's a series of 5s and 2s in a square on just a regular sheet of paper. And some people immediately will see, like, all the 5s will be the color red in their mind. They don't actually see a color floating in the air, but in their mind's eye, what they see is red associated with it. Or they'll see a green too. And so he'll have the numbers arranged in a shape where the rest of us look at that and go, oh yeah, I see it there. It'll take a while to kind of envision the shape that's there. But so I had it up at work, and the guy walked in one day, and he's like, oh, cool. Purple 5s and blue 2s. That's neat. And I started laughing. I was like, found one, And so I realized it's out there, and people just don't really talk about it, because when I was a kid and learning about it, I learned the hard way. They were like, oh, that's special. Yeah, we can send you to a special place. Like, that's not what I'm after. But I think that, like we were talking before, I think that really does play a lot into the creativity that is in the head, in my brain. It's just the way I was born, and so I think that's part of where the poetry comes from, and the different ideas come from.
Well, I'm interested to hear how the synesthesia helps you write Trevor and the Dark Rider. Tell us about Trevor.
So with Trevor, that was a story. I was working here at the house doing something probably 10, 15 years ago. And like many of the stories that come to mind, the fiction ideas, they just come in a flash. It's sort of like a mini movie, if you will, and the whole thing plays out within seconds. So it's just like a fast forward mini movie that flies through my mind's eye, and I was like, wow. And sometimes I'll stop and sit down and just kind of enjoy the moment. In others, it's so much at once that it kind of knocks me back. But anyway, so with that one, I saw it play out, and as I started kind of breaking it apart and kind of developing it more than just a single action of da-da-da-da, here's what happens in the story, the plot line, actually adding in the characters, the character development part, the settings and the experiences that they have and the interactions, talking to other people about it, it helped me to realize, oh, okay, I can add these little bits and pieces back into it that I've been holding. I mean, literally I was holding them back because I was thinking, is it going to be received well, or are people going to think it's nuts? And then realizing that that's the kind of stuff that people like. They like those details and those descriptions and those mixing of the senses, if you will. And so that's where I was like, okay. And so before I knew that I had a name, but in talking to people and getting some feedback in the development of the story, I realized, just let it run, and see where it takes you. And so that's where I added in some of the different extra sensory parts of the story and the things that they experience, the beyond reality kind of thing, if you will.
Yeah, I love the writing. I love the writing style. I'll read a little bit. It was on page 82. It says, "In the distance, he saw a dark rider on a horse. It was slowly making its way across the battlefield toward him. The battlefield was littered with weapons and dead soldiers. The horse was stepping over and onto the bodies that lie between it and Trevor. He tried to reach for his sword, but his arms wouldn't move. They felt like they were weighed down with bricks." You paint a really good picture many times in this book, and it's just a really, really wonderful read. I'm glad you wrote it, and I want to switch gears a little bit and talk to you about believe, do, and follow through. Now, this is like obviously very, very different from Trevor, but it's more of a motivational book, correct?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's more of the pragmatic side of the brain. I wrote that book with a colleague at work a few years ago, and the idea, that was an idea that was bouncing around in my head for a while, and Isaiah Whitaker, the co-author of that one, called up one day, and he's like, "Hey man," he's like, we need to do something." I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Well, I know you got a bunch of ideas bouncing around in your head." He's like, "Pick one and let's run with it." I was like, "Okay." And so at that point, I already had about 20 or 30 pages written of that particular book. And so when I said, "Okay, here's the idea," and he's like, "Okay, yeah, that's cool. That'll work." And so we laid out, over the next couple of weeks, we laid out the chapters and then divvied up the book, and we alternated chapters. So I took one, he took one throughout the whole thing. But the whole intent of it was so that we wrote it so that people would, it was to encourage people to finish things that they've started. So because a lot of times people have good ideas, but they're scared to put them into practice, or they're afraid that once they start it, that they're not gonna complete it, and then they beat themselves up, and it's a self-defeating cycle. So we wrote the book to encourage people, and we made it small enough, skinny enough, so that people would actually read it. And the idea was that there's 28 or 30 chapters right in there, so there's one per day. If they said, "Okay, I'm going to hopefully change my life in the next month and make it more positive," they could take one chapter a day, read through it, because it's only about 4 pages per chapter. They could sit down for a few minutes, read the thing, go, "Wow," and they walk away with an idea of, here's what I'm going to go do. The idea is that it comes from self-belief first. You got to believe that you can do something, and you have that belief in yourself, or you find somebody else who believes in you, or even go find somebody that you believe in and go, "Okay, I'm going to work off that belief surrogately if I have to, and start something." And then you actually do it, and then once you're doing it, keep going, follow through, because that's where people will tell us. We get emails from folks once in a while that'll say, "Hey, I was doing great on the do part, and I just stopped."
Right.
Like, "Well, what happened?" And they'll lay out what happened, what the problem was. Or, "Okay, cool. So what do you need to do now?" "Oh, I need to do part 3."
Right, exactly. I think a lot of us are guilty of that, starting projects but not finishing them.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think that's just somewhat indicative of our society. I mean, we're doing so many different things at once and juggling so many different things. You start one thing and then something else pops up and you put that to the side and start that, and then something else pops up, and before you know it, you got 5, 6, 7, 8 unfinished projects that you're kind of juggling, and it's hard to bring them to fruition. But I like the message of this book. I like chapter 2. Get rid of stinking thinking. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, that one it's a Southern phrase because there's growing up in North Carolina, there's lots of phrases that I haven't heard since I've lived in California, but they're still in my mind, and so that's one of them was get rid of stinking thinking, because a lot of times it is what we either perceive about ourselves, what we think about ourselves, or what we say to ourselves. Nobody else ever hears those things except us, or individually. But it comes out in body language, it comes out in actions or lack of actions, and it comes out just in even in somebody's tone of voice. You can hear through their voice what's going on in their head. Is it positive? Is it negative? It's a very telling kind of thing. But getting rid of stinking thinking, when you get rid of one thing, you have to fill it with something else, because as humans we tend to not like empty space or a void. And so just like Charles Duhigg says in Power of Habit, if you're going to get rid of one bad habit, you have to replace it with a good habit.
Right.
And if you're going to get rid of 2 bad habits, then you got to replace it with 2 good habits. And that's the same idea that we're trying to encourage people is, one, get rid of the bad way you're thinking about yourself, or if you want to go as far to say a wrong way of thinking about yourself, and then to put in there in place of it good stuff.
I think that's a wonderful message to send to people, because if you get rid of bad stuff, then there's a vacuum. You don't want to replace bad stuff with other bad stuff. You immediately want to replace it with good stuff. So that's a great message. I love chapter 12, Seeds of Greatness. I'll read a little bit. Everyone has the ability to take what they have, who they are, and where they live, and turn it into something incredible. We each have seeds of greatness. It's how we utilize them that matters. Tell us about how a person can discover and appreciate the seeds of greatness within themselves.
Well, if somebody's still alive and kicking, as we would say in the South, if somebody's still alive and breathing, then their potential is still there. They have kinetic energy that's ready to be released, and it's sort of like a car. Like I was working on my truck the other week, and the potential energy for it to go on a trip is it's sitting in the driveway. It's the greatness is there in the vehicle, but just like the greatness or the idea of going on a trip is inside of us. But it's not until we actually, my wife and my family and I, get in that car or get in that truck and we drive away and we go on that trip until that kinetic energy is actually happening. And so I think the same thing happens in people's, to each of us. People tend to, they know that it's there. They look outside and they go, wow, the sky is blue today. Okay, do they close the blinds, or do they go outside and enjoy the sunshine that comes along with that? It's right there. It's already in there. And it's a matter of changing the perspective. It's sort of like walking into a darkened room in your garage or a closet or somewhere in the house at night. And the potential for the light to be on is there. But until somebody actually takes their mind and tells their hand to reach out into that darkness and flip the light switch on and enjoy the light that comes on that's there, they're still going to be in the dark. But so it's a matter of just simply shifting that perspective from, am I going to complain about the darkness, or am I going to turn on the light? Am I going to complain about, are there gray skies outside, or am I going to go outside and enjoy the sunshine that's coming through? It's simply a shifting from one way of looking at it to the other. And the actual phrase from Seeds of Greatness is from Dennis Whaley's book by the very same title. And that was one of the books that really encouraged me years ago, just to be reminded of, wait a minute, God already put into me and to you and to anybody listening right now what we need today. And it's a matter of, are we going to water that, or are we going to complain and look for something else that we don't need right now, because we already have inside. It's already planted in our hearts, and it's already planted in our minds, that goodness and the greatness that we can use to turn on and share with everybody else.
I see. And you're also a speaker and a coach. I imagine that a lot of the lessons that are in the book and the things that you just shared with us just now, are those the type of things that you coach people with, or what is your coaching focused around?
Yeah, a lot of it's the same kind of stuff, and trying to encourage people to do more with their lives in the time that they have, and to look at things a little differently. To either, if they're looking too dead on at something, to shift their perspective to the side slightly, or vice versa. If they're askew from something, to square up with it and look at it better. I used to travel the state when I was working in a different job. When I was working with the school district as an administrator, I would travel up and down California doing personal development seminars and doing educational workshops for different school districts and different organizations. And that was a lot of the message that we would work into the presentations. And I would do it with a team of people and then do it on my own as well. But more recently, I've been doing coaching through via internet and through the phone, and then still one-on-one visits with people. And it's interesting. I write a weekly article on leadership for the Solomon Islands, and I met the editor, emailed the guy 4 years ago, in fact, and we hit it off. And so every week for the past 4 years, I've been sending them leadership articles, and so they publish it every Sunday. It's just a real short, to the point kind of thing, and to encourage people throughout the week. And it's interesting, within the past 6 months, I've been getting a lot more email inquiries, and so people have been asking for specific questions, and so when those are help in specific areas, and so I try to tailor or customize the encouragement that people need, or the training that people are looking for, the coaching, specifically to what they need. And so I'll ask them, hey, what is it that you're struggling with? What is it that you need some help with? How can I help point you in the right direction? And so they'll fire back their list of things. Like one guy had a list of about 15 or 20 things. So I'm like, okay, let's do them 2 at a time, man.
Right.
He's going to turn off after he gets to number 4.
Wow, that is amazing. You obviously are in demand. You've done a lot. You've accomplished a lot, and we truly enjoyed Trevor and the Dark Rider, the assignment, and Believe, Do, and Follow Through. And definitely looking forward to learning more about the other books that you've already written, and obviously other books that you're going to be writing in the future. We actually have your information up on our website. Hope it's okay we had your phone number up there too, in case people want to call you directly and book you as a coach.
Absolutely. Hey, and I was going to ask you too about your book. We were meant to ask you earlier about it. The No Business Cards Allowed. That sounds cool.
Thank you. I know that title may ruffle some feathers in a variety of different circles, but that's kind of the point. I want people to have a raised eyebrow when they read the title, which is going to be an impetus for them to read a couple of pages and just see the type of things that I want to impart on the readers to help them become better networkers and better business professionals. So
yeah.
From an accomplished author like yourself, thank you. That is quite a compliment.
Cool, man. Because I saw that and it intrigued me too, because I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's a new approach to it, because the paradigm from years ago was always have business cards ready, always have them set up in your pocket, be ready to flick them out, be ready to. It's like, wait a minute, whoa.
Right, exactly.
Perspective, to get your perspective, and from your years of experience of networking with other folks as an attorney in different realms in D.C. That's cool. It's cool to hear that. All right. Business cards are not necessary in all times.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's a time to give them out, and there's a time to decline, and I go through all of those situations in the books. I'm excited about that, but I'm really excited about your books and what you're doing. And for those who are listening, you can visit www.martyreep.com. And learn more about Marty and his books and everything that he's got going on. He's a great author. Marty, thank you so much. We are so excited to have you as our guest today, and we look forward to talking to you again.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right. Talk soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Well, book lovers, thank you so much. We are out of time, but be sure to join us next week when we have wonderful authors and more great books. My name is Rob Brown, your internet radio host and chief book lover, and this is For Book Lovers Only Live Radio, where if you love books, we have a home for you. Take care, and we will see you next week.